Limited to Limitless Transformational Coaching presents Limitless Conversations. Insights to Transformational Breakthroughs.
Episode number 1, From Silence to Strength, with Colleen Norman.
In today's episode, we're looking at overcoming adversity and finding your voice, Colleen's journey. So I'd like to welcome you, Colleen Norman, to the show. And would you share a little bit about your background? Let everybody know a little bit about where you came from and what steps brought you to your first breakthrough moment. And then we'll go back and discuss a little bit more in depth what that breakthrough was like. Does that sound good to you?
Sounds good.
All right.
So my name is Colleen Norman. I am a mom, a wife, a former police officer, substance abuse counselor, breast cancer survivor. Like many women, I've lived 1,000 lives. I was born and raised in New York. We was me, my mother, and father till I was about 5. My parents decided to move us to Florida. I was about 5. My brother was a newborn. Unfortunately, they had some pretty severe substance abuse problems, and they had probably some mental health issues that nobody ever recognized. And on top of that, they had their own childhood traumas they grew up with. And then they had 2 kids and a big divorce. No support. Was the 60s and the 70s. You know, women didn't have the support that they do now. And I grew up in a very wild environment. Unfortunately, by the time I was 8, I was sexually abused by a babysitter. And then not under my mother's supervision. And then again, when I was under her supervision at 13, I was raped, date raped, with a group of friends. And we didn't have a great relationship. And that has followed me. And I never realized how much where we come from follows us our entire lives until I started working as a police officer. I had pushed so much of my personal life stuff down because that's all I need to do, right? I'm a generation of I guess Gen X. You know, children are seen and not heard. So you did you die? You know, you scraped yourself riding the bike. Did you die? No, go play. So feelings weren't something were discussed. So I packed it down. I had been parenting since I was 7. So I had so much, seen so much, heard so much that children shouldn't see and hear on the regular. And I just shoved it down. When I got into law enforcement, I realized those early life experiences molded, formed, shaped my entire adult life. And I ended up in a situation at 43 years old with 2 children in a very volatile, unhealthy, traumatizing marriage. And I realized I had very little skills or worth. I was so beaten down. I did not know what to do. I was always told I was wrong. I wasn't stupid. I was not smart enough to do this. I wasn't smart enough to do that. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it kept bringing me right back to my childhood of all of those things. So if I wasn't smart enough or all these things back then, and my parents had abandoned us or left us for their lifestyle of drugs and alcohol and sex and stuff. And now I have this man who is reinforcing that to me, that I'm not good enough. So I kept pushing my feelings down, and you know what? Maybe he's right. And I better get good enough or he's going to leave me too. And then what am I going to do with 2 kids and no real education, no way to really make any money? My kids are going to be my mind went all those places. They're going to take my kids. I'm going to be homeless. I'm going to be all these things. And I was desperate. And I was listening to other women, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe I could go into nursing school. Oh shit, that's 4 years. Maybe I could go into this. Oh, that's 2 years prereqs and 2 years of it. And then in our local high school, they had a vocational program for police officer, 10 months part-time. I went, holy shit, that's my out. That's the key of getting out of here. And it changed my whole attitude in the home. It changed my whole
Did you have a job, another job? You weren't just a homemaker, right? You had another job.
I worked part-time as a dental assistant, believe it or not. I had gone to high school. My high school had a program for at-risk kids, and I took it dental assisting in high school. And so dental assistants don't make a lot of money, and it was part-time. And I knew at the time my husband wasn't going to allow me, that was a big word in my house, allow me to go full-time, because then who's going to pick up kids and cook, do all the house stuff. So this program was at night. I could come home from my part-time job, cook dinner, get homework done with the kids, get dressed, run to the academy at 6 o'clock, stay there till 11 o'clock, come home, the kids will be asleep. And then the next day started again. I could make lunches. So I was like living this double life, and it was empowering me, because here in the police academy, the first day I showed up, I was the only female, and I was the oldest one in my class. So I heard someone say, who brought their mommy to school? And I went, oh man, I'm going to get abused here too. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it home. I'm going to get it from these guys.
And what year was this?
Oh, it was 2010.
Okay. So not that long ago.
Not that long ago. But I knew that I had 10 months. I only had to put up with this shit 10 more months at home. And 2 good paychecks, and I could be out. I could take my kids, and I could prove to a judge I have an income, a steady job with benefits, with the sheriff. I knew. I went and sat down with him,
Nice.
and I said, I'm doing this. He was my neighbor.
Yeah.
We lived in the Keys, so very small communities. And I said, I'm doing this. Would you hire me at 43 years old? And he said, absolutely. I think that there are many places a 43-year-old woman would be beneficial to the community in law enforcement. And here's what I think, this is why. And he sat down and explained to me that we have women in our community that go under the radar because there's no resources for them. And I thought, okay, that's what I want to do. I want to be a help in the community. I want to find these women and see if, maybe I can plant a seed and set them off in a different direction. Still not really realizing how fucked up my own life was. I was going to go help somebody else.
How long did you live in that marital situation and working as a dental hygienist? How long did you live in what I would term as your trap, where you felt trapped?
I was in that relationship for 8 years. It started very different, as many of them do. Right. And there's terminology now we didn't have, in the early 2000s, even in terminology you and I never grew up with. Love bomb. We didn't have that. Yeah. And it fits, right? It fits that man that shows you all the things you think you're looking for. I grew up in an environment that told me I needed a good husband and don't worry about anything else. Everything else falls into place and works out for itself. And so he would drive hours just to give me a rose and a kiss. And he would just the overwhelming love and attention and all the good stuff. All the good
Mhm.
stuff I never got growing up. All the good stuff I was always giving to other people, but never got. And it
Gotcha.
was fascinating. Now, when I get to the police academy and I start taking these classes on domestic violence and the circle of domestic violence, I'm sitting there going, oh shit, this is very familiar. Oh my God. But he never beat me. But he
Yeah.
never put his hands on me. And I really struggled with saying, but he said bad things to me. But he said I'm overweight, or he said I'm ugly, or he said I was stupid. He never put his hands on me. It could have been worse. I was always excusing it and
Yeah.
pushing it down, you know, because if I, in my mind, rocked the boat, he's going to leave too.
Was there a moment after you decided to go to the police academy? So you kind of had a breakthrough moment beforehand that you just couldn't, like, you really told yourself, not one more day of this, not one more day like this. Do you
Right.
remember that moment? Do you remember that breakthrough moment?
It had been, I guess, culminating. You know, it had been just one thing after another. I had a daughter when I married this man. She was 3, going on 4. Um, I couldn't stay in this relationship and watch her be treated this way.
Okay.
I did not want my son to grow up treating women this way.
Hmm.
And that mama bear, you can down me and do me dirty all day long, but not my kids. So it was a struggle because my son was so close to him
Uh-huh.
that unfortunately he got caught in a lot of conversations he should have never been caught or involved in. Sitting on the couch with his dad, and I walked past in my uniform to go to school, and you have to have your hair up. And my ex-husband said she looks like a baby gorilla, and my son, they laughed. They just sat there and laughed and and shit like that.
Yeah.
And so I
It's
had to
really,
get,
it's hurtful to your heart because you
yeah,
feel like this is the person who should be protecting me and be my
sure,
partner in life, not
sure,
making fun of me.
right, and not teaching my son to make fun of me
Yeah.
or another woman or a girl or anyone, to teaching my son to look at someone and look for the worst,
Yeah.
look for their weakness, teaching my son to be a predator, teaching my son to be an abuser.
Yeah.
And my focus then was, the next victim in my house is going to be my daughter.
Yes. And I appreciate you being so vulnerable in this moment because this is a tough moment, but I also think there are a lot of women out there who need to hear this, who are being strong and who are saying,
Sure.
oh, just, he's just trying to be funny, or he's just trying to be smart, or he's just trying to impress somebody.
Right.
But they're taking this on and taking this on and taking this on and not realizing what it's doing to them and what it may be doing to their children as well. So I appreciate
Sure.
your vulnerability and your openness in this. I'm wondering if, thinking back on that though, if you can, and I don't want it to be too personal or too painful. So if it's too much, just let us know. And
Sure.
we have some other great information. But if you can think of that, like the one moment where it was just, you were just like, I just can't. I know it's a culmination, but think of that straw that broke the camel's back. There is usually one triggering moment that we've let it get to, where we're just like, I can't take this anymore. Can you think of one specific episode? And if you can't, that's okay. I'm just curious. It's my curiosity more than anything.
Yeah, I think it really did revolve around my kids, because the more it was just mostly my watching him and my son
Okay.
come at me about my appearance, about how I cooked, if I didn't cook the right thing, come here, buddy, I'll cook it for you. She doesn't know what she's doing. And it was just, I was watching this live, and it's me. And I'm watching this, and my daughter's here, and she's going to learn that this is the way men treat women.
Yeah.
I took her out of a similar situation with her birth father.
Okay.
So how I ended up and it swapped so fast from this loving, I was the queen, and oh my God, couldn't do enough for me, take care of me, I'll pay the car payment for you, don't worry about it, take yourself to the spa, blah blah blah. And to, I don't like your friends, we're moving away from where, completely moved away from my support and security and my friends and family of 20 years. And the reasons all sound legit. And when you're in it, you know what struck me in the police academy? My instructor was a female, and she was very, very open and honest about teaching domestic violence. And she said to us, many of you won't get the reference. And she looked at me and she said, I know you will. It's like the cartoon of Bugs Bunny when he gets caught by the cannibals, and he's joking and singing as he's cutting the carrots while he's sitting in the stew that's cooking. That's how you feel. You know it's happening. You don't know what to do about it because you're just so used to this everyday routine and everyday treatment. You begin to believe this is where you belong and this is all you're worth. And that's what happened to me.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. And I think there are some women out there who are going to be able to hear this from you and know that they have options.
Oh my gosh. You don't realize it when you're in it. You really don't.
And I think you've had so many breakthroughs and so many things. You've done such great things with your life. Can you hit a little bit more on the fact that you didn't have a perfect upbringing? You didn't have the, perfect family. You didn't have Leave It to Beaver, if anybody gets that reference.
Nope. The Partridge Family, the Brady Bunch, all those.
Family, right.
I got that on TV. That's what I thought a family should look like. The babysitter on the television showed me that. My parents were very young. They got married right, in the 60s. It was proper to get married right out of school, right out of high school, even before college, and have kids. And they were both very broken people. Of course, nobody talked about mental illness or mental wellness back then. And so they had kids instead. Yay. Exactly. We'll have kids and we'll have more so we could stay together. And it didn't work out for them. And I didn't realize their dysfunction birthed me and showed me the way of the world. And it was not good. It was not good at all. Unfortunately, when my mom didn't have a husband, she was very erratic. She'd come and go out of our lives. She hung around with bikers. Any given time you could go where she lived and there was drugs on the counter, a kid walking around, stripper, girlfriend, bikers, all kinds of crazy drugs, guns. She punched my sister in the face one time over a man. My sister was 13. Over a biker boyfriend. She held a gun to my brother's head. Told him that she had never wanted to have him. He was just like our Jew bastard father. That's the kind of childhood we grew up with. And when we were taken from that and brought to our grandparents, we were not allowed to discuss it. It wasn't discussed. It's your parents. We could say all day long what we wanted to about our Jew bastard father, who in the long run was not Jewish at all. He was actually Sicilian. They hated him. They hated him. He never came back around until I found him when I was 27.
Wow.
When he walked out the door, he walked out on her and us, never looked back.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we were taken from her. And it was understood that she was trying to get her life together, and she was devastated over the divorce. And we were going to go one day and live with her. We did periodically. My brother and I went different times of our lives, and it ended up being one disaster over another. I went when she was married to another abusive man, who the first time ever in my life I saw a man punch a woman in the face, and he punched my mother and broke her nose. I was 12. I had a person that I thought was my friend. I used to be allowed to go visit. I was allowed to do a lot of things in my life. I was programmed to be allowed. So I was allowed to go visit this girl who had horses when I lived with my mom and my abusive stepfather. And she was allowed to have barn parties and things like that. And I met a boy there who was quite a bit older than I was. We started drinking and smoking weed, and that was the first time I had sex. So I was not I wasn't a willing participant at all.
Yeah.
And then that came out to my grandmother, and I was
Sorry you had that experience. I'm very sorry.
I didn't realize what it was. I couldn't even say those words because nobody would listen to me about my mother. They're certainly not going to listen to me about that.
I understand that.
So at 13, this girlfriend's mother put me on a bus to New York, and I went back to my grandmother again. And I stayed there till I was 18, and then I moved out and went to Florida on my own and lived in Cocoa Beach and made my own community of friends and people that I could trust and things like that. Got to make all my own bad decisions.
No one to blame but you.
That's right.
Fortunately for you, you had not the best example of how to be an adult, how to be in relationships, and all of that. And I think we're going to cover some of that a little in another episode that you've agreed to do. So thank you for that. How did the decision to become a police officer transform your life? And was there a point in the academy where you felt that transformation really burgeoning out of you?
Well, I definitely felt powerful. I like I said, I was the only woman in my class. There was 8 men. They were all, I think the oldest one was 37. And the rest of them were very young, 20s. I think one was 19. And they were all from Miami area. And I'm the only Keys kid there. So it's a very different lifestyle. They embraced me. I was shocked. They made me the class captain. Again, I was shocked. I think it was probably to take the heat more than anything else. And they knew I knew because I had been a volunteer at the sheriff's office, so I knew the community and the culture and the people. So it worked out, but they empowered me. They didn't realize how much they were empowering me by giving me that trust. We would have study groups. Some of them were having some issues with the book work. We would have study groups together. I would lead the study groups. I had issues with some of the physical stuff. These men would come back for me. They would say, "We are not leaving you behind. We are with you, Cap." And they would come with me. If I couldn't keep up on the run, they'd come get me. And the more that happens, the more empowered I became, and the more these bonds grew that I never had with men before. With men growing up and with these odd behaviors I had as a child, a lot of things were transactional with men. And I don't say I prostituted for money, but I thought that's what you did. You loved somebody in a relationship, you had sex. You know, you didn't, the getting to know them part and that it was special and all that. Nobody ever told me that part. So I didn't know that. Not an excuse, but just saying.
Right. It was just how you were
it's
raised,
just,
what
right,
you witnessed.
right. So here's 8 other men that I'm having these relationships with, and they're genuine. They care. They are encouraged by me. And at graduation, when they stood up and they made me, the valedictorian of the class, and I got all these awards and the leadership award, and the things they said was shocking. Funny, my ex-husband didn't show up to my graduation because he thought I was fucking them.
Oh.
So he didn't want anything to do with it. We had a party at the house afterwards, and he told everyone as he announced my graduation how proud he was that he allowed me to go to the academy and achieve this.
Yeah.
I knew, and now I had a gun, and now I'm not afraid anymore. Because those people that I didn't know over 10 months trusted me with their lives. They would go, in the culture, they say, I would walk through a door with you, Cap. That means they trust me with their life, literally. They would go into a dangerous situation because that's how they feel about me. Nobody's ever said that to me before. I didn't trust me with my life.
Gives me chills. I have chills all over from that. Wow. That's
and I
powerful.
thought, I had one day I sat in that parking lot crying in uniform. Yes, there's crying in uniform. I didn't want to go into the academy. We had to do this physical fitness exam, and I was scared. I just didn't achieve enough for the state of Florida to give me the license. I wasn't getting there enough. And they just were, come on, we're not going in if you're not going in. And we all fail. You're not going to go in. Well, none of us are taking it.
Wow.
And I didn't get the best marks, but I passed it. And my instructor that did defensive tactics gave me some great advice. And he said, you don't have to be the strongest person in the room. And just because you're a woman, don't ever think you can't fight your way out of something physically. You learn 1 or 2 good go-to moves, and you can get yourself out of a physical jam. And that's what I did. 2 good throw balls, ladies, throw balls. No, just kidding.
A little self-defense tip.
That's right. That's it. But these are things that, all of a sudden I'm becoming mentally empowered, emotionally empowered, physically empowered. Not everybody needs to go to the police academy for that.
No, it does help to know that it's possible.
Right.
That it's something that's achievable. I know also that while you were having these empowerments, there must have also been challenges for you during this 10 months, both emotional challenges, not physical challenges, because we may or may not face physical challenges, but the emotional challenges, and then maybe the ethereal or spiritual or,
always
the untouchable challenges. Can you describe any of like the big ones that came up that made you second guess
always
your decisions or second guess? And I'm sure that your ex-husband was a huge voice of challenge because he was probably always knocking your decisions. And how did you find the strength in those moments to just keep breaking through that wall?
I could see myself becoming more interactive with him at home. So if he wanted to challenge me, or there was negativity or toxicity, I was meeting it with the same energy, which was not the case for 7 years. So it was a shock, to him. And even to the point where I noticed myself becoming aggressive physically. I wanted to I wanted to knock the shit out of him. And then more things would come out, within the family. So in this four walls that I had been kept in for pretty much the majority of this relationship, I could go places, I could do things. I always had kids with me,
Yeah.
So there's always monitors on me. Always
Right.
felt like I had monitors. I always had a fear of him. Things that he would say, he knew I couldn't swim. And so if we'd go on the boat, I'd be concerned about if we ever got into it, if he just wanted to get rid of me. Very easily could get rid of me. And that's maybe my own delusion in that relationship. That's how afraid I became, that I wouldn't even go on a cruise with this man who was supposedly my husband, because I was terrified that he'd get pissed off enough at me one night and just push me off the damn ship.
Wow.
I was terrified to drink or eat anything that in my own house that he made, because of comments that he made over the years of rape, innuendo, or just sexual play that he thought about, fantasized about, whatever. It was just not, it was too much stuff that was just too keeping me down. I was the crazy one. Always me.
Yeah.
In that relationship, to the point where he'd take me to the doctor and I was on antidepressants, which I had to get off of for the police academy, which was great because I didn't need him in the first place, because I wasn't crazy. He was gaslighting me. We didn't have a term for that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We didn't have, verbal abuse is abuse, no matter what we are programmed to think. Just like there's sexual abuse that doesn't have a touch. Nobody has to touch you. They can be verbally sexually harassing you. There's abuse verbally, and there's women that are like me that just don't acknowledge that. We put it on us. We put it back on us. Not that I would ever think, oh yeah, oh my God, I deserve that. I would think, geez, I know he likes X, Y, and Z. Well, I should have just made the X, Y, and Z. I don't know why I even started. Why? I was so beaten down. It wasn't even that. It was just like, why? Why did I even give him the chocolate milk? I know he likes regular milk.
Right.
I don't want to hear him bitch. But it wasn't that I don't want to hear him bitch. It was like, I was afraid to have another confrontation, with always a confrontation. So I had a gun, I had a paycheck, I had a little voice, had a little voice. And even through the whole academy, he accused me. If I was 5 minutes late because we were having a study group meeting, or we had a thing at the academy and we all got in trouble and had to stay and do 50 push-ups, I was accused of having a relationship, screwing around, whatever.
Right.
It could have it was never like, oh my God, what happened that you're late? Are you okay? No.
And I know he was such a big voice and a big presence, but what about your inner challenges? What about challenges you had with yourself? And not just the feeling like I'm not good enough, but maybe the feeling of, is it worth all of the trouble? Or once I break through, am I capable?
Right.
This? But I think the worthiness really is where a lot of us are anchored in. Are we worth this trouble?
Or are we what they all said we were, or what we grew up with that made us feel unworthy, right? It reinforces those things. Nobody said, oh, you're unworthy, you're unlovable, you're ugly. It's the actions that they took.
Yes.
And then when other people take similar actions, you go, oh shit, that's why. You're right. You know what? You're right. I am stupid. What do I know? I have a bad habit of saying that jokingly. I always say I'm the schmuck in this relationship. My husband's brilliant. I'm the idiot. And I'm not. I know I'm not an idiot.
No,
I got this far. I'm not an idiot.
and when I'm coaching people, I try to highlight, or I work to highlight, that you are the most influential person you're going to speak to every day, because you hear your voice out loud, but you also hear your voices inside in your head all day long. So it's more than anybody else. And the words we choose to define ourselves are important.
Oh, absolutely. And I had used all the bad ones all my life. Fat,
Right.
my nose is too big, my ass is too big, my boobs are too small. I didn't look like this. I don't act like that. Whatever. I don't have this kind of family. I don't have that kind of money. I don't drive that kind of car. All the things that we all grew up with. But I think the sad part for me was I finally recognized this is not the relationship for me. I've got to get my kids out of here. However, it still took me a while to realize this is just a pattern for me.
Right.
I was just the rabbit in the woods. He's a predator. I got to stop being the rabbit in the woods,
Yes.
because there's going to be another one. And there's going to be another one, and there's going to be another one, and there's going to be another one.
For people
And
who
I
aren't
didn't.
familiar with that term, will you explain rabbit in the woods a little bit? I mean, you've alluded to it, but I would like it to be clear to our listeners, especially if they can't see you, if they're just listening.
I was just what everybody had told me all my life. I was just this young little person, this little rabbit, this little, didn't have much of a voice. Nobody really knows what a rabbit sounds like. Just kind of walking around in life. Almost, I would actually say, as I got older, I was a chameleon, because I would just mold myself into whatever anybody needed me to be, just to keep the peace.
Very
And being that little rabbit just sets me up again for the next one that sees me broken, or a rabbit, or a sheep, or a misfit toy, or all those things. And the next one might be the one that kills me. The next one might be the one that rapes my daughter. The next one might be the one that abuses me and beats me up within inches of my life.
And
I
I
can't
would,
anymore.
if you would allow me, I would say that a rabbit in the woods is a soft, innocent creature who is easily startled or scared, but also easily trapped.
Right. You're trusting, you're not trusting. You're trusting, you're not trusting. You're not sure what to do, because in your life, the people you should trust, your parents, your grandparents, the people that are set in place that we're told are the people that are to care, nurture, mentor, protect us, love us.
Yes.
Were all my demons, all the people that led me. The first time I used drugs and alcohol, I was 12 years old with my mother.
Yeah.
So my father's going to be 80 years old this year, still smokes pot every day. That's his coping mechanisms. And I can look at them now and say, oh shit, they had terrible life too. However, there's got to be a period on that.
Right.
I don't blame them. However, I'm just recognizing, like I said, this marriage, this ex-husband, we left each other. I told him I got 2 paychecks. I said, you need to move out, because it was my home. You need to move out. He moved across the street. And then in that second, I knew I had to I called immediately, and I found a house to rent, and I moved my children. And that was the end of it. And deputies and my classmates came to my home and helped me move.
That's amazing. I mean, we always hear what a great community the police force is. And, it's brothers and sisters. It's not workmates.
It's a tough, it's a tough gig.
Right.
It's a tough group.
But they'll support you.
Yes.
And they did support you.
They did.
And I want to congratulate you from one perspective of, I think for those of us who had difficult childhoods, it becomes imperative, if we want to stop the cycle, to not just say, I want to stop the cycle, to realize our parents did the best with the tools they had. However, they also made choices not to improve those tools.
Right.
And you deserve congratulations because you finally were able to take a step out of the woods and see the forest for what it was and realize you could stay in there and continue the cycle, or you could step outside and gather new tools. And your first step in your breakthrough was deciding that your son, first of all, should not be raised to believe that this is the way you treat women. That your daughter, secondly, should not be raised to believe that this is the way women should accept being treated.
Correct.
But also for yourself.
Yes.
And you're a mother, so you're always going to protect your children. However, protecting your children also requires you to protect yourself. It requires you to strengthen and harden yourself to be able to handle the challenges that are ahead. And you deserve to recognize yourself a little bit more. I hear in the story that, you own what you did, but I don't think you give yourself the recognition. I don't think you give yourself the medals and the honors and the badges.
Yeah.
As much as you deserve. And
I think still at this point in my story, I hadn't even recognized. I just thought I got a bad guy. I didn't recognize I was not only, seeking that kind of what I was seeking, that knight in shining armor, the romantic love, the mutual, all the shit I saw on TV, all the romantic comedies, all that stuff.
right.
I didn't realize that there were people that could do that and not be genuine.
Right.
So I thought, he was a phony. He was a pretender and all those things. But again, once I was in law enforcement and I could see, because I'll never forget, I arrested this girl one night. I hadn't been a police officer very long. And I arrested this young girl. She might have been 21, 22. She's in the back of my patrol car for drugs. And she's crying like hysterically, out of control, like none of them ever before. So calm down. I get her calm down. And now I'm giving her a lecture. Why are you crying? How did you not think this was going to end like this? She said, no, please do me a favor. My children are at the women's shelter. And then I gave her a really big lecture all the way to jail. How could you leave your kids at the shelter and go out with this guy and do drugs? And she kept going on, and I kept thinking, there's nobody, you have nobody to help you. Nobody. Nope. And I put her in jail. I went to the shelter. I helped get her kids situated with DCF. And I thought, I can't believe there's nobody to help this girl. Like, she made a bad decision. She's not a bad person. She might not be the best at her game right now, but she's young. Where's the help? How do we get her to not be in the back of my patrol car again? So I found myself every time I would arrest a woman trying to talk to them out of whatever situation I was arresting them for, whether it was because they were stalking an old boyfriend or in a bad relationship or, whatever, using drugs, being pimped out by their boyfriend. I couldn't believe in my own community. I didn't know this was going on. I didn't know there was women out there. I didn't know there was girls out there that were really struggling because I was so deep in my own shit at home that I just didn't realize it. And I wasn't really part of my community like I was now as a police officer. And one day someone said, there's a women's shelter in Key West. 50 miles away. Okay. So you should go check it out because you could use that as a resource for some of these girls. And I said, yeah, okay, we'll see. And then it kept coming up again and coming up again. And then one day I get a call from this woman. She said her name was Elmira Lido, and she had a women's shelter, 3 to be exact. And she was getting a grant from the state of Florida to have a program that would help women begin to change. So you would be incarcerated. I would go into the jail. I would do assessments. We would get you out of jail, put you into a housing situation, and start the healing process, therapy, maybe some vocational stuff, um, everything you can imagine. She said, but it has to be a police officer or I can't get the grant. How much do you love your job? And I was like, well, as a matter of fact, I was looking at other stuff in life, and my kids are getting a little older. I'm a single mom now. I have 2 children. My shift, because I'm now new, the new guy gets the shitty shift. So I'm working at 4:30 in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon. I had to hire a woman to be with my kids on the days that I worked, which was his own set of issues,
Right.
So now you got your wish, you're on your own. Now what do I do? Now I don't have a support system anymore because he made sure I was away from the people that gave a shit about me.
Yeah.
He made sure to isolate me from the people that could really be supportive of me, especially the ones who spoke against him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And there I was trying to sort it all out. And this woman calls and I said, I need to look at some things, I need to see if I can do this. And it worked. I did it. I took less money, but it opened my eyes to a whole different idea of what was going on in my own life. The more I would meet these women, and I was running women's groups, and they were from all walks of life and all economic backgrounds and all diversities and all shapes and sizes and whatever's. And I'm like, I am exactly like you girls.
So
Exactly.
what was your role with this women's shelter, or this women's group? And what was the name of it?
It's Samuel's House. It's in Key West, Florida. There's 3 programs there. So the initial home is a women's shelter for women and children. It started out as a homeless shelter. It was to help women who were in domestic violent relationships to get a start, get some safety, some security, some tools, and get out on their own. And she ended up with also a place called Kathy's Hope, which was it's a secondary home. So it's all master bedrooms and bathrooms, and then shared common areas. And the women can go there. And they still have programs. They still have some supervision, but it's a lot less. But there's still a lot of support. And then there's the apartments for intact families that have gone through the programs.
So they're like transitions. You go from Samuel's to Kathy's and then to the apartment.
Yes.
So your support system is really strong to start with, and then it lessens a little bit.
Right.
So that you start living independently.
Right. Because sometimes you had issues, when you went to jail. So it could be drugs, substance abuse. It could be you're part of a domestic violence case. Your children are not in the home. There's so many factors, and where do you go? A lot of resources in the Keys were very limited.
So how did you find your personal history and then your experiences as a police officer helped you in this program?
Um, a lot of hard time, long time police officers probably won't agree with me. I don't ever see things as black and white. There's always a gray because I've always given everybody that grace of, oh, they're treating me like that because they're sad or they're hungry or I made excuses for everybody's behaviors towards me. So I always live in the gray. So
Right.
when I would arrest somebody, I would be like, this guy doesn't need to be arrested. He's just homeless. No, but he's trespassing. He's not supposed to be here. He's homeless and he's obviously has other problems. Like, don't we have something else we can be doing other than arresting him and wasting those resources? Or, the same thing with the females. Why am I arresting this girl because she's selling drugs? Well, she's selling drugs because she's a drug addict. She's not, it's a criminal offense, yes, but, she didn't kill Hoffa. So, let's find a program. And it would piss me off that other people didn't see it like that. So I was called the bum whisperer in my police department. I was called the bum whisperer because I knew all the homeless people's names. And if they were trespassing, I would stop and say, hey, Joe, are you supposed to be here? No, Miss Colleen, I'm not. And he'd be picking up his stuff. I said, all right, I'm going to drive around the block. If I come back and you're still here, I got to take you for the ride. Okay, I promise I'm not going to be here. All right, see ya. I would drive around the block and Joe would be gone. Why take that man to jail? For what? For what? To get on in the system again. He's already in the system. We don't need to put him back again. And that's the same thing with these girls that were on the streets with drugs and stuff. Why? They don't need to go to jail. They're getting drugs in jail anyway. Or they get clean enough to come out of jail for a hot minute and use at the rate they were using when they got to jail, and then they die. We've done nothing for them. Protect and serve, but you're not protecting and serving everybody. I'm protecting and serving. So I'm protecting the community from this drug addict who's breaking into cars for cash or drugs, whatever they can find.
Right.
But I'm not protecting them or serving that person at all by putting them in jail.
And are you really protecting the community, or are you just protecting the community for, the 48 hours that they're in jail?
No, you're just putting a Band-Aid on it.
Did you see that? And I'm sorry, what was the title of your role at Samuel's house?
I was a case manager by all intents and purposes, but I was the director of the burn grant for the state of Florida at Samuel's house.
And did you feel when you got that role, did you feel as you looked at being a police officer versus that role, did you feel like it was a greater opportunity to provide more help to the community? And that's why you were willing to take a pay cut and maybe not have as many things as a single mom.
Yes. And because it would get me at home at a decent hour, I could be home with my kids overnight and they wouldn't have to. My daughter was really struggling with me being working at night. And then they went to a Christian school where most police officers' kids went. It was a little more private. And there was a lot of school shootings going on, police officer shootings going on in the nation. And those kids talk. Yeah. And they hear stuff and it's on TikTok and it's on all these things. And she was really getting some anxiety over I worked at night, and that's when things really, could happen.
4:30 p.m. to 4:30 a.m.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And in the department I worked for, I at one point was the only one on duty in this particular police department. It was a very smaller community inside another city. So I often was by myself. And my son has Asperger's. He was having a lot of issues adjusting to moving out from the family home and that structure that he knew to moving into this little house that I was renting. I tried to recreate everything in the bedroom for him to be the same because it was only 2 bedrooms. I worked at nights. I slept on the couch during the day anyway, or in one of their beds while they were at school. um, it's, you know, the struggles. You don't go get your nails done. You know, you don't go get your hair done. You know, all the things that moms don't do. You know, I just continued not doing those
Yeah.
because I was used to being poor, you know, or financially in the lower spectrum of the middle class. My ex-husband had his own business, which, you know, I stayed home most of the time. I only worked probably the last part-time, probably the last 2 years. And that's what I think even gave me the balls to even think, because I met some of these women who were in the sheriff's office in my dental chair, and they would talk to me and say, you could do it, you could do this, you could do that. And whether they heard how I responded, because I know I remember saying to one of them, my husband will never allow me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think she picked up on how I responded, and she was the one that really, really encouraged me. Shout out to Nancy. And whether she knows it or not, she was the lieutenant when I was doing reserve, and she really encouraged me a lot to continue my education. And one day she finally said to me, are you going to be a volunteer forever, or are you going to go join the academy? And I said, I don't know if I can.
That might have been a moment of breakthrough.
She was like the little, you know, voice in my ear.
Yeah.
You could do it. Go do it. Go talk to the sheriff. You know, go talk to him. He's an easy guy. And
sometimes that is what it takes. Also, in this journey, this fantastic journey that you've had, you experienced breast cancer.
yes.
Can we
just
I want to touch on that just a little bit, because I do want to get back to some of the ways that you were able to empower women in the shelters. But I think it's an important piece of your really illuminating the strength that you have learned to find in yourself.
And in my warped brain, I got breast cancer. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I was so pissed. I remember telling the girl on the phone, you must have the wrong file. Because she had called me and said, hey, you need to call, I need to schedule an appointment with an oncologist. I'm like, for what? She says, well, the biopsy came back as breast cancer. You got the wrong Colleen Gonzalez. That's not, it can't be me. There's no way. I've been in the police academy for 10 months. I've lost 35 pounds. I actually could do more push-ups than the boys. I was doing more sit-ups than the boys. And I could run 1.5 miles now in 10 minutes. So I can't possibly have breast cancer. I'm like arguing with this poor secretary. She's like, nope, you got it. And I went to my doctor and I'm like, what the hell? He's like, yep. I said, well, they're just going to have to do a biopsy, sew it up, do something quick, because I just got a job with the sheriff's office. I start in 2 weeks. Oh, you can't do that. You got to have surgery and then do this. So I called the sheriff back, and he said, how much time do you need? And I said, 5 weeks, because I didn't want to lose that paycheck.
Right.
You know, if I lose a paycheck, I can't take these kids and go. So
right.
5 weeks, I had a double mastectomy with complete flat to with the expanders. I had to go every week for injections of saline so that we could expand the skin so I could put the implants in, because that's what you do, right? Well, 5 weeks in a day. Now I have to stop a second, because again, to go back to my police brothers and sisters, the sheriff actually called me and said, I don't care what you need. If you need us to pick the kids up from the bus stop, you need someone to go get your medication, you want somebody to come bring you some soup, you call and we'll bring it. And they did. They picked up my kids in a patrol car at the bus stop. They brought me medication from the Walgreens when I needed it. They came and brought me sandwiches at lunch and sat with me. and cried with me and laughed with me and made fun of me, just like they do. They called me to ask me how soon I was going to get better because they just took the radar out of my car, but they'll give it back. Things like that. So it was an amazing group. They even made sweatshirts and sold them and gave me the money to put towards my expenses because I hadn't started working, so I had no insurance.
Wow.
So it was just an amazing group of people. They came and saw me at the hospital. They came and saw me at home. They stood by my family the whole way. So I can never say anything bad about the policemen and women in the Florida Keys. They're amazing people. It wasn't at 43 for me, it wasn't the culture I thought it was. I thought I was going to be able to change people's lives, and some of them are able to do that. I hadn't been on long enough to experience law enforcement the way some of them did. So it was probably very difficult to work with me. I, at one point, met a young woman who was the victim of domestic violence and had her come and live with me. So you don't do that as a police officer. I had no boundaries. But I saw a young girl in a way that I had never seen before. And I was like, oh, I can help this person. And it made me feel good about myself.
And you did help her because you told me the story of her before.
Yes.
And she has an amazing life now. Thank you to you.
And no, thank you. But to her, I just got her out of that and let her look at a different path. Right. That's all. And that's all I've done with my kids too. That's all I did with my clients when I was at Samuel's house, when I was at drug court. That's all I could ever do. In fact, I would even say to them sometimes, if you're at this crossroads and you don't know what to do and you don't want to call me or text me, just think, what would Colleen say? And they would laugh and say, you would probably say to us, what the fuck made you think that was smart? I said, good, if that's all it takes to make you stop for 1 second and go, oh, I should think about this, then that's okay. I don't care. I'll be the victim. I'll be the bad voice in your head. I don't care.
So what strategies did you find were the most effective in helping women see that light and gain their independence? And because it's not always easy to speak to a woman who's in an abusive situation and she's maybe not quite at the breaking point, and the breaking point might be her not living anymore. So right. What strategies did you find helpful to illustrate for these women that it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be at the bottom of the barrel to want to climb out?
I think by not having boundaries. I mean, I'm an educated woman, but I have a college degree, but I have far more street smarts than I do book smarts. And I think that's what I did. I just was very honest with them and said, I could live in this house at any point in my life. I abused drugs. I abused people. I let people abuse me. I abused relationships. I lived completely on survival skills, so much so that it created a tumor on my adrenal gland and caused me to overproduce the fight or flight hormones. Nobody knows how long I had it, but I apparently always had it. So I have always had this very crazy.
So you didn't just have breast cancer; you also had that tumor on your adrenal gland.
Yeah. So it's crazy. So I think just being honest, not even vulnerable, because I mean, what can I say? I did shitty things. To people, with people, to myself, because I just didn't know I had another uh, path, or it was the only way I thought I was going to survive this situation.
Mhm.
So I either went with the flow until I couldn't anymore.
Right.
And I think a lot of women do that. We put
Yes.
up with a lot. We will put up with a lot because we don't want to rock that boat. Because, you know, a big joke growing up, somebody said in my family, it was getting divorced, it's cheaper to keep her. And I thought, oh, that's kidding. Like, I I have two ex-husbands. They both got houses. Because
Yeah.
guess what? It ain't cheaper to keep them. I don't give a shit.
Right. Right.
My brother even laughed after I got divorced last time. He said, my last two husbands both got houses and businesses. He says, I want to marry you. Maybe I'll get a house and a business.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. Then we'll have to move to like Alabama or something. I don't know.
But you're happily married now, correct?
I am happily married now to a very well-adjusted, functioning adult.
That's important. So I know that one of the big things for most women who are in an abusive situation, even if it's emotional abuse and not physical abuse, if they honestly look back through their life, they will see, like you saw, you were in a cycle. You were that rabbit in the woods, and he was the predator with the trap. And you'd
Right,
walk into that trap every time and get dragged out,
right.
and then you'd live in that cage, and then
And
you'd chuck yourself back into the woods, essentially.
I'd mold myself into whatever. Now here comes my Prince Charming, and he's got all these things, but it comes with conditions, right?
Yeah.
I want all those things. I want you to lavish me with spa days and hairstyles and haircuts and all these things and nice new clothes. I want to be treated like a princess, a queen, all that shit. And it came with attachments. And then so I was a chameleon. And oh, you like boats? I like boats too. Yeah, I could go on a boat. I fucking hate going on the boat. I hated going on the boat, and I certainly hated going on the boat with him.
Right.
Um,
So how would you, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but you have this relationship now that is healthy and allows you to grow, allows you to be who you are, has helped you even become a better version of you, according to your daughter.
he's
How
amazing.
how would you say that you've broken the cycle from 1 and 2 to 3? And what advice would you give to women? This is why it's a two-parter. So how did you break that cycle of abuse and being the chameleon? And what would you say to women would be the first step that they could take to maybe get out of the habit of chameleonship?
I'm still doing it. There, um, you need support. You need therapy. You need to own your shit
Okay.
as yours with conditions, right? You you can only do as as well as you can do with the tools you have. And with the tools I did great. I had a house by the time I was 19 years old. Professionally, I was on point. I rose through the ranks of any job I ever had. I had a career by the time I was 18 years old. I graduated high school at 17. I was an overachiever, but those things are, I was two different people, right? My professional life, stellar. My personal life, shit show. I had no idea how to do the transition into my personal life from my professional life. I got all my accolades at work.
Mm-hmm.
So it was easier to ignore stuff at home. When you were a stellar performer at work, you went from, a dental assistant to the office coordinator, or, you went from being in the police academy to being the captain of the class. I was an overachiever in everything I've done. So I, I think women, we take on so much. society puts so much on us. We take on so much. The roles are starting to change a bit, but not enough and not fast enough. We still have this oxymoron type of society. Women need to, how do I say it without sounding corny or cliche? But they need to stop. They need to stop a minute and look at what their support system is. Who is in their life? Who are they thriving with? Is it certain people that they're attracted to that they thrive with, and certain people that they're attracted to that bring them down? Those are the people we have to get rid of. And sometimes other people see it and tell us, and we don't even recognize it still. I had 2 girlfriends tell me, and my sister both tell me he was a very bad man. His own daughter told me he was a very bad man. Take my children and run. Who says that about their father?
Right.
You know? So there's a lot of things out there that we see and we overlook, or we don't have time for. This is another thing we got to deal with. We're not ready to look at that for ourselves. I wasn't ready to look at all of this damage that my parents did. We had laughed about it all our lives. We used humor in my family because you weren't allowed to talk about it seriously or actually get help for it. So we laughed about it. You know, if my kids now as adults even would, at a family gathering, would, you know, my mom wouldn't let me have ice cream for dinner when I was a kid. My brother would say, well, at least your mom didn't hold a gun to your head and say she wished you were dead. And it was like, ah, and then you go, oh shit.
Yeah.
That really, you know, that's not funny. We normalize so much in abusive situations that we don't know how to get out of it. And when you're in it with the other damaged people and the other damaged behaviors, it's hard to get out of that over and over and over abuse and that over and over cycle. Women would come to the shelter and say things to me, and I would go, and I would try not to go to their face because I didn't want them to think I was judging them. I was going like that because inside I was going, oh my God, my mother did that to me. Hear me for the grace of God. And I started looking at people like that. And I think that's how it, when I was a police officer, it really started for me. I know every family in America is 2 paychecks away, if not 1, from being homeless. It's a statistic.
Right.
So I was always gentle with homeless people.
Yeah.
Because whatever their situation is, I knew even with a steady job and a steady paycheck, if I missed a paycheck, me and my kids were going to be living in a woman's shelter. So I was no better. Someone said to me, you're the person that was never there for you. Actually, my therapist said to me, thank you, Megan. You're the person there for you who was never there for you as a kid. And I said, no, I never thought of it like that. I always thought whatever good I put out there in the world, I don't really care if it comes back to me. Just please, if my children are in a bad situation, bring them somebody good. I don't care. Just bring them a good person. Don't add misery to it.
So with all the things that you have been through and gone through, you have the most incredible attitude and the greatest resiliency. And I know that you're still making plans for the great future that's ahead of you, only because I have the inside ear of your daughter who told me some of these things, which is how we got connected.
Yeah.
And what I would ask you as we're wrapping up for today, what would be, and we're going to talk to you more, so don't panic, audience. We're going to have Colleen on at least a couple more times, probably more than that. But what advice would you give to women right now? Because you don't have to have come from a place of being abused. You don't have to have had a bad family situation to still be stuck in a cycle that's not allowing you to break through and reach your limitless potential. But what would you tell women who are currently facing challenges or adversity or hard times to keep them moving forward and to let them know that there truly is a path to your limitless potential?
Right. Think about the words you say, right? Words, we always are concerned about what we say to our kids. How's it going to land on them? Oh my God. Sometimes I would even say something. I go, well, there's their therapy money right there. I say the most horrible things to myself, inside and outside. Always have. I'm learning. Stop saying those things to yourself. If you wouldn't allow somebody to talk to your best friend, your mother, your child, your sister that way, don't allow yourself to do it. Because if you allow yourself to keep yourself in those, an example, I would do charades and with group, and I would do words like unlovable, loser, criminal. They could act them out all day long. You do loving, kind, caring, compassionate. Didn't know how to do it. People couldn't do it because they've never been associated with those words. So start speaking positivity. You know, it sounds so cliche. It sounds so ticky-tacky and internet garb, but it's true. If you tell yourself every single day you're a loser and you're fat and you're ugly and you're this and you can't, then you absolutely are all those things because you are not feeding your brain positivity. You know, diet, nutrition is just not about what we eat. It's about what we ingest internally through words, through what we read. I've become such a aware person of myself that there's certain shows I don't even watch on television because why? Why do I want to see that shit? Because I used to be one of those people that would gravitate towards uh, crime things and abusive things, childhood abusive things, dramas like that. Why? You know what? I watch reality shows. I watch every game show under the sun. Anybody that can make something, those kind of positive things. Get rid of all the negativity. It's the first step in taking care of yourself. It's not self-care is not about getting your nails done, getting your hair done, getting a new dress. That's not necessarily self-care. Those are things we deny ourselves because we can't afford it, or we don't want to put money into that investment because the kids need shoes. Self-care really needs to be all the things you want for your kids, all the things you want for your best friends. You have to want that shit for yourself, or you can't give it to your kids, or you can't help and support your best friend or your sister or your mom. You can't support another woman, another girl, another child in this life if you can't want those things for yourself. So I'm a flat-chested woman. I no implants anymore. I don't wear fobs. I don't care. If someone looks at me and has something to think negatively, that's their business. It's none of my business. I'm not gonna go out. I don't think I look manly or ugly or unfeminine. I don't. I'm still me, just without boobs. Those boobs got me in trouble all the time anyway. When I was young.
Troublemakers.
Troublemakers. Now I'm flat and sassy.
Well, you were always sassy.
Probably. I've always been funny.
I'd like to thank you so much for joining us today. It has been amazing. I know that everybody is going to get so much out of what you shared, and I can't wait to have you back. I'm so excited about our next episode together, which, okay, audience, we've already planned out, and we will be letting you know about that at the end of this episode. But until then, I hope that you all have an amazing day and enjoy your time and be limitless.
Thank you. Okay. So Samuel's House is in the Florida Keys. It's in Key West. It was started about 25 years ago by Elmira Lito. She became my mentor very, very quickly. Her role in the community she's still going strong, was to be the source to help women from being incarcerated for whatever reason to a halfway house. They could get support. They get the supervision for the first 90 days. It's pretty intense. That's where they can get counseling. They can get AA and NA information and meetings. They can get hooked up with work resources. We had so many resources for how to do resumes, how to dress for a job interview. Because a lot of these girls didn't have that in their upbringing. They didn't have someone to mentor them, to show them, this is how you want to look if you want this type of job. This is even who you contact if you want a job in the community with the county or with the state. A lot of girls didn't have these resources or support. So sometimes they would get hooked up. They were there court ordered. So would have to be through either the judge and hearings and, always court involvement, always legal involvement. They had attorneys that they had to have test results for drug testing and things done at the house, which is all provided for them. It's a transition from jail to life, but in a better way, with support, with tools, with the ability to have a safe place to see your children if you're only on visitation, to have the ability to have a stable and safe environment that will give you the opportunity to return the children to your care. And then on to the next step, which was still supervised housing, but less. You still had the support. You still had availability to resources, but you had more freedom as far as coming and going, where the shelter was a little stricter because it was a 90-day program. And then once you wanted to, if you wanted to or could or needed to, she has apartments, Casa de Maria, which also is for smaller, intact families. It helps them with resources in the community. These are families who have also been through some kind of service in the community, whether it was they had some DCF involvement or maybe they had some legal involvement. So there's nothing like it in the Keys. And I don't think there could ever be anything like it again. Thousands upon thousands of women have come through that program. Some have completely changed their lives to become counselors in other programs to help other women also get these benefits. It's a godsend. My goal has always been to keep in contact. My best friend is the director right now of Samuel's House, and I keep in contact with her. So anytime I come across a windfall of money, if it's a tax return or something, I send grant money down there to help assist with housing fees or childcare fees. I always hoped that one day I would have the ability to start a program for the children that live in Samuel's House. Because as I'm recognizing my own childhood traumas, it's got to be traumatic for a child to grow up in a shelter, even if it's temporary. So there needs to be some programs for them with some mental health issues, counseling, and some some play counseling, and maybe a little workspace that they can play games and do homework.
How would people reach out to Samuel's House or any of the programs to donate money or goods?
So Samuel's, they have a website, and it's samuelshouse.org, and they have a phone number. And because I'm terrible with phone numbers, I have to look it up. It's 305-296-0240. And you'll get to reach usually a case manager, and they'll do an assessment for eligibility on the phone. And because sometimes that's not where you need to be. You might need to be at a more safer location.
So that would be for people joining. What about for people donating to?
For people donating, so you can go online to samuelshouse.org, and you can look, if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, you can look on Amazon. Samuel's House is there also, and there's a charity button you can click. And so much of your sales throughout the year, they get a little check. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's an amazing option.
Yeah. If you live in the Keys, they're always looking for donations for women, clothing for business type jobs, things for the kids, car seats. Sometimes girls are in a situation where they got to leave, and it's right now, and they got to take the children, and it's right now. And those kids have what is ever in a backpack, toys, clothes, any kind of educational things for the kids, always needed. Sometimes, you just don't realize what you have can change somebody's life. Even if it's a bike. If a woman doesn't have transportation and she can get a bike with a bike seat on the back for her kid, she can get the child to daycare, and she can get to work. So think about those things too.
All right. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.